What's up, Justin?
Hey, how's it going, Sean?
Good, man. I appreciate you taking your time here on a Thursday. I'll just do a quick intro, real quick. This is Service to Sales Vet, helping vet, sponsored by my company, Shift Group. What we do is we help high level athletes and transitioning vets and vets that already transitioned get into some high paying tech sales roles. And actually, we're going into other verticals too, like manufacturing, robotics, medical, and all that. And we're growing pretty fast over here. And the CEO, he thinks that vets and athletes have a lot in common, and he asked me to come on, board and help them, recruit and spread the message and get with other companies and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing here on Service to Sales. And weekly, I've been inviting, a vet that's been doing pretty well in the sales space. And me and Justin have been kind of LinkedIn friends for a little while. And I said, hey, it'd be kind of interesting to get somebody that was in the British Army. I thought that was just something a little bit different, even though like the British Army and the U.S. military are very close, and we have a really good relationship. So, Justin, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your military background, what you did in the military, and then why you got into sales and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Sean. I saw that you started working with the Shift Group. I thought it was great. And when you reached out to me, two things. All you had to do was say veteran and sales, and I was like, I'm in, right? Those two words. But yeah, I was in the British Army for 7 years. Um, had a good little career going on there, and married a Canadian girl, and fell in love. We tried the whole married in the army thing. It didn't work out, so we ended up moving here to Canada. Um, and long story short, transitioned, didn't really know what to do, and eventually I was like, well, what is there for me to do? I went back to school, and then I started a career in sales, and I've been in sales for about 2 years now, and it's been an interesting time for sure.
Yeah. So, did what was your first sales role that you got into?
So first sales role when I left the army, I was always into fitness. I was always that guy who was like ahead of the pack when it came to running or any sort of march. So I thought, you know what, love fitness. Let me try and do something that I'm passionate about. Decided to become a personal trainer. So when I transitioned to the army, I spent all my credits on doing PT certifications and health coaching programs. Left the army 2019 November, moved to Canada. So it was just a few months before the pandemic. Started being a personal trainer. Didn't realize that being a personal trainer, you had to sell yourself, you had to sell your program and training and all that. Having the British Army, background helped me, and that's where I transitioned into a sales role. Did that for a bit, and then ended up working for Peloton, where I sold Peloton bikes during the pandemic period, and yeah, I got really good at selling the Peloton bikes. Enjoyed selling them, and then left. I got hit up by a recruiter on LinkedIn, sort of like 6 months into that role, and was asked about transitioning into SaaS. And it was in the back of my mind. So I had a lucky break. I was lucky because a recruiter found me on LinkedIn and decided that I would be a good candidate for a company that they were looking to fill. Um, so that's how I transitioned into the SaaS space.
Okay, as
Yeah,
as a sales development rep.
as an SDR. Yeah.
Okay.
So really lucky about that with the way that went.
So is the British Army like the U.S. Army, where if you do like 4 years, for example, they'll pay for your college or they'll pay for some sort of training or whatnot?
Yeah. So it was I can't remember. I think it was 6 years. So if you do 6 years of service, they'll pay for your university degree and they'll give you tons of money to do courses. Um, I I was meant to do a university degree and they were meant to pay for it. And then the day before I left England, I went to the office letting them know, yep, moving to Canada. I'm going to start going back to uni. And then up until that point, they told me, yeah, no problem. You know, you're moving to Canada. You could do university there. Literally the day before, they were like, nope, you can only do it here in the UK. And I was like, I was livid because maybe I would have stayed in the UK. But luckily, I transitioned to Canada and did some research. And there's a university called BCIT that recognized my military service and all the courses that I did and put me through an intensive business diploma. It's called Advanced Business Diploma Program for people who have like experience in already, especially veterans. So I did that for a few months and I got my diploma that way.
So you sold for Peloton. Was that selling to individual people or like to corporations or is it just people were going on the website and you were kind of calling them or whatnot? Was there any outbound?
It was B2C, so it was, you know, to customers walking through the door.
Oh, it was in a store.
It was in a store, so it was face to face, which I sort of prefer. Like, you know, I know we meet everybody through Zoom and LinkedIn. I really enjoyed meeting people face to face. In terms of outbound, there wasn't any outbound until I sort of arrived. So when I started my Peloton job, I started reading books on sales by Jeb Blount. He's a and another guy called Grant Cardone, who I started because I didn't know who to follow or what to read, right? So I just looked online and I was like, oh, Grant Cardone, he has a big following, and Jeb Blount. I read their books, and that's when I started picking up the phone and dialing. Right, started going through my CRM, making those cold calls, and it really helped me hit quota and made
where were those leads coming from?
Those
were people that just like went on the website or something like that?
No, those were people who came in, they were interested, but there was no follow-up, right? Like, it was like either you buy now and that was it, or I'll call you in 2 weeks, but there was never any follow-up. So I made tons of money through follow-up alone, just following up with people, calling them and asking them, hey, you know, I know you came in store and blah, blah, blah. And man, I quickly started selling bikes, like a lot of bikes, man, making good money. And I was the top rep in the sort of area I was working, and then top 10 in sort of out of 80 people after only like 2 or 3 months. Right. So that was from learning. That was just from reading books and trying to always get better.
So you're an account executive now for Dually. And you just got that job or 2 months ago.
2 months ago. Yeah.
When you took over, did you go to all the closed loss ops, like and do essentially what you did at Peloton, to start calling people that like didn't buy it before?
Well, I did that as an SDR.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was already sort of going through the CRM, doing that. And I've got, like, if I open up my calendar, like tons of tasks of like, I need to follow with this person, that person. Yeah, that's what I've do.
So kind of tying this back to the military, and this is for people in our audience. I'm not sure, I can't see who's in here or not, that aren't in the military, that think like people in the military are real regimented and don't think for themselves and all this stuff. And I talk about this all the time. It's the farthest from the truth. You got someone like Justin who gets into Peloton and he becomes an SDR at Dually, and he's literally just coming up with creative ways to do whatever it takes to be at the top, right? Because like high level vets, just like high level athletes, are always competing, and even if it's with themselves or a quota or their team. And so that's just something I'm glad you got to tell everybody that, because like you essentially, like, you didn't get any guidance. You're just like, I want to be at the top, and you figured a way to do it at Peloton, and I'm sure you're going to figure a way to do it at Dually. Why? So what did you bring from the Army to like being an SDR at Dooley and now in AE, like what are some of the things that are like parallel there that you're using from when you learned in the Army, or you like honed in the Army that you kind of use now, like soft skills wise?
Oh, that's a good question. People ask me this all the time. I never really know how to answer it. In terms of soft skills, like Sean, like honestly, like I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned in the Army. In the Army, whenever I spoke with somebody, it was very direct, right? It was never a question. Like, it's typically like, especially when you're an NCO, like, you don't ask questions and you don't ask questions. So I had to actually learn how to like listen better and ask questions, because I was in a role where I was just given direction. But I could give you like all the generic ones, like discipline and organization, which is, I think, two things that any veteran probably has. But I think what has helped me is self-awareness. Like in the British Army, we would constantly be training, right? And also in the American Army, right? We're always training.
Yeah.
And after trainings, you always go back and do like a quick debrief, right? Okay, what happened? Where could we do better? And what can we do better going forward, right? And I remember that, and I was obsessed with becoming really good at my job in the Army. So I think when I transitioned into the civilian world, I realized that I have a lot of self-awareness around where I need to improve. Where I think a lot of the time what I've seen, working with others, is people don't have that self-awareness. That they're not open to saying, yeah, I really suck at cold calling. Maybe I should go and get better at that. Or, hey, I'm a new account executive. I suck at discovery. Maybe that's something I need to improve, and really have like a look at yourself in the mirror and have that conversation. So self-awareness is one. And then I think the other one is, you were in the Green Berets, right, Sean?
Yeah. I was in special.
Yeah. And so I was in the rifles. And so one of the things that we would say often, I can't remember how we said it, but it's basically like, we're the kind of people who you put us anywhere and we'll get the mission done with minimal help, right? With what we have in the immediate area. So we were very, we'd get the job done regardless of what needed to happen or what we had, the resources we had. So when I left the Army, it was like I still want that sort of mindset, like whatever I need to do to get the job done, I'll do with whatever I have.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're like you're resourceful.
Yeah.
You don't require a lot of support or guidance and stuff like that. It's the same. It's the same where I come from. Like in special forces, we're on like 12-person teams.
Yeah.
And within that team, you have like two commo guys, 2 medics, 2 weapons guys, 2 engineers, an intel guy, and some leadership, right?
Yeah.
And then essentially, like between all that, we can operate anywhere in the world. Essentially, we can fix ourselves, we can communicate, we can use anybody's weapon systems, even if they're not like American. You know what I'm saying? So like that's kind of what we prided ourselves on, is to be in like a low cost, low drama, low budget force.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like when I got into sales, that's kind of the mentality I took, is like, I don't need any. I was, a little arrogant about it, but I don't need any of this stuff. I'm just going to work hard and win, kind of thing. And kind of worked out for me. Is that similar to what you did? Is this like, just master the foundations, like you said, work really hard, and then learn through your, what we call them after action reviews. I think you call them debriefs. Always like learning and going. It's a cycle. You
all the time.
What you did, you learn, and then you fix it the next time. And
all the time.
Yeah. And then the environment's always changing, so you always got always be learning. Like always be learning.
But I think I
Go
think
ahead.
problem solving is the thing that we're getting at. Like we're both problem solvers, and I think that comes from being in the Army, especially like when you're in leadership position. There's a lot of problem solving. I think, trying to figure out the most efficient way to do something is another thing. I remember in the Rifles Regiment, we would always say we do everything that's necessary and nothing that's not. Right? We're not gonna, that's sort of one of our regimental mottos. And that's sort of something that I try and do even in the civilian world. Is like, and I noticed that in the civilian world, we do things that are just not necessary. And it's like, why are we continuing to do things this way if they're not working and they're inefficient? And that's where I try and change things up.
Yeah. Do you think that's because, like, in the civilian world, a lot of people are just kind of worried about what they got going on, and in the military, because you're doing, like, for example, you're a rifle, right? So you're doing, like, say you did a raid, like a big live fire exercise, like,
Mhm.
your actions, if you don't do them correctly, can possibly, like, harm one of your teammates, right? So, like, everybody's kind of worried what everybody else is doing. Not worried, but everybody's hyper focused on everybody's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So, like, you're safe and you're not, like, hurting each other. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're doing if somebody's over there, like, we used to have a saying when I was younger, before I was in special forces, you're on the range, or, like, everybody's a safety officer. If you see something,
Yeah.
like, say something, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
anybody can shut down the range for, like, a safety issue at any
Yeah.
time, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of mentality we bring in, is like, hey, if we see something that's, like, not working, or it's broke, or it's wasting, tons of people's time, and reps trying to sell stuff, and they're doing some other stuff that's not creating revenue, then, we kind of get that little thing in the back of our head, and try to change it, right? And then so
Yeah.
I think you're right. That's something that we do bring over from the military. So
I think it's
go ahead.
I think it's loyalty that you're getting at. I think it's like mission critical. Like we're focused on the mission. Like, and in sales, the way I think of it, at least for the companies that I work for, is like, especially when you're an SDR, you're the boots on the ground. You're kicking doors in, right? And everybody else is counting on you to bring in revenue to that business. And if you don't bring in revenue, how can the business continue? People won't have jobs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think a part of veterans, what they bring to a team is that they care not only about themselves but about everybody else, and they want to make sure that everybody achieves their mission, right?
Did what's the do you, I don't want to put you on the spot, because I forget mine, but does the
Mhm.
British Army, like, have like, core values? Like, I think ours is,
Yeah.
like, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless
So
service, something like that. But
sea
you remember it?
drills. Yeah, you put me on the spot here, Sean. Sea drills, courage, discipline, respect for others, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment.
Yeah, and
Right?
then if you take all those attributes, and, like, that's a hiring manager's dream, man. If like, you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you a person that literally lives by these attributes. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't. It's a no brainer. That's why, like,
Yeah.
I kind of preach a lot on LinkedIn about um, hiring for character, and hiring for
Yeah.
soft skills over hiring for, like, did you ever use Salesforce before, or you
Yeah.
know whatever. Like, and I think, like, it's been proven time and time again. You see it all the time. Like, guys like us, that and girls. Like, I had a really high level sales rep on for my first show. We all just get in there and do well, and we never sold anything before, and it was just off of. I think a lot of it's grit. Like, and you hear that word
Yeah.
on the rod, but it's just like trying to just not quitting because you're trying to complete a mission.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
Another question I got for you is, why, and this kind of piggybacks on what we were just talking about. If I asked you to go to, like, a company for me as a favor, and say, hey, can you explain to them why they should hire veterans for their entry level sales roles over like maybe or to supplement. It doesn't have to be over, but to supplement, them hiring people straight out of college or somebody that just was like an SDR for a year or whatnot. Like, why would I want to hire like a vet to be an SDR?
I think it would probably tie back to some of the reasons that we just mentioned. I mean, the way I see it is like before I joined the British Army, I didn't have my life together at all, and joining the Army helped me put my life together, and it made me the person I am today. And if I had gone to university, I don't know if I would have learned all the things that I've learned being in the armed forces that we mentioned, right? Like the grit, how to work with others, how to problem solve, the loyalty. You can't buy that, the care, when somebody cares about an organization, that's hard to buy, because most of the time people just have jobs and it's just a job, clock in at 9:95 and off I go. But when you when you hire a veteran, you're hiring somebody who really cares about the organization and will do everything that they can to sort of make that happen, right? Make the mission happen.
We'll see what you see that on the screen.
Yeah, knowledge, skills, and attributes. This is a challenge for me to relate these qualities into a sales and BD market. I may think that ends with applications.
What do you think about that?
Well, what comes to mind is whenever I apply for a job, I apply for it like I'm a business development person or an account executive. I prospect into that account. I multi-thread. I cold call, cold email. That's how I'm showing that I know how to stay on top of things and know how to do my job. But I agree. I think it's hard to sort of relate the experience you have in the military to a sales role. It's hard. I don't have the answer to it really.
Hey Tom, can you put in the thread like what you did in the military, and then I can kind of, and this would be a good little thing. I can help you in like 2 minutes tie that to sales.
Yeah.
If you're still on here, Tom, put it in the chat. But yeah, so like you said, the if you want an entry level sales job, the applying this blindly applying with a military resume, even if you church it up, because there's like we've all the military people, they've went to those classes and they
create a resume, a CV, 2-day event, 3-day thing.
Were you infantry, Tom? But whatever. Yeah, and it says you were like a project manager, or it's usually you're a project manager, right? Typically, I manage this and I counted for that and whatever. So, if you send that to a sales role or BD role like Tom's talking about, that applicant tracking system, which is like it skims the resume for keywords and stuff like that. Or even if it's an entry level talent sourcer and they don't have an app, they're just going to look at the requirements that are on the job description, and they're going to look at your resume, and it's not gonna line up, right? So like the odds, okay, so the odds of the you getting a call are low unless they have some sort of like veteran initiative. Well, they'll just talk to every veteran that comes through. So if you're trying to get into BD, Tom, like the way I framed it, and it took me a while to, and then I'm going to ask Justin how he framed it in his interviews, was like, hey, I was a Green Beret. I advised foreign partner forces. I worked with the U.S. State Department and other stakeholders across the world in multiple countries. And I had to essentially sell them on doing certain actions and operations in support of U.S. foreign policy objectives. And sometimes like these actions and operations would put them at risk, their families at risk, or there's huge risk for like, some sort of like media event or national like make the nation or the U.S. look bad. So if I can sell somebody to do that, I can sell your product. And then I kind of refined that. I just went off the cuff on my head, but I kind of refined that in the interview, and everybody's like, "Wow, that's some pretty high level sales, right?" What would you do, Justin? Like, how'd you say what you did in the military?
It was nothing. It was nothing as articulate as that, Sean. It was
Yeah,
nothing like that. I think the thing that I did is like, I was a corporal. I sold people on the mission that we were doing. Whenever I was doing a orders, right?
yeah,
Orders, right? But the truth is that they never had. None of those guys had a say in what they were doing. They were just nodding their head. Like, yeah. But the but so the truth is, it's really difficult for me to articulate how in the infantry, why would I be good at cold calling and emailing, right? Like, it's hard, man, to
but
write that in a
leadership.
resume.
This is another thing that people know. Leadership in the military is sales. So yes, you have rank, right?
Yeah.
But like asking somebody to, and this is very extreme. And it barely happens. Like probably once in a lifetime. But asking somebody to go take out a machine gun for an objective, so essentially like go take that machine gun out and get yourself killed possibly over
Yeah.
some sort of goal or objective. Isn't that's kind of sales, right? I mean, it's extreme, but it
They
is
have to
sales.
be bought into the mission, but also they have to trust in you
Yeah,
as the, whatever your rank is, to be telling them, hey, you're gonna go and kick in this door now. You're the first person through. Like, they need to trust that you know what you're doing, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
And then another thing, Tom, while you're still here, because he's the only one that's commenting right now, is so if you want to get into biz dev, right? That's the term you use. Well, like the way that you're going to develop business, which is a lot of tactics that are used by sales development reps and business development reps, is outbound prospecting, right? So
Yeah.
you need to treat your job search just like you would as a BDR. You need to research, get on LinkedIn, connect with people, and there's a whole social selling aspect of like getting a job that a bunch of people talk about. Like you target these companies, you start getting connecting with the people that work there, you start making yourself known, add value, ask questions, and then submit the application and tell them that you did it, right? And then because that's business, you're developing yourself as a applicant, right? And then yeah, so that's the I think the best way to get a job is to do that on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. I mean, it's
Yeah.
worked for me. Like
It's worked for me.
I like my last couple jobs, I didn't apply. They just came to me. I don't know how Dolly came to you, but it sounds like a recruiter found you or something.
No, I prospected into it. I saw the job opening. I did a bottom and top down approach. I reached out to everybody at my level, literally
Yeah,
all the reps. And
yeah,
literally spoke with 3 of them and built rapport, asked them good questions, and asked them for a referral to this hiring manager. So by the time I spoke with the hiring manager, he already knew my name. They've already recommended me. And then after the hiring manager, I got a interview with the VP of revenue. Guess what I did? I sent them a video of who I am, my background, everything that I've achieved before we even met.
exactly. Well,
Right.
like
And that's what
yeah.
you do when you're a sales rep. You do that, you follow up, right?
Well, we leverage that at Shift Group is like we bring in they were doing athletes, we're bringing vets also now too. We train them on all. It's more like the landscape, different definitions, some basic terms. Talk about CRM. Talk about like organizational structures. Like what is
Mm-hmm.
sales ops? What is an AE? What's an SDR? What does marketing do? We give them all that, and then we have them go through these like cold calling tasks where we film them, and then we have them talk about, why me, and then we have them do, and then we film all this stuff and edit it together, and then we put it on on like essentially a link to the hiring manager. They get a link and it has like their bio. You can click and you can go to their resume. You can click, it goes to their LinkedIn bio, and it's got all these videos of them cold calling, them explaining why they're going to be good in sales. And it's like 3 or 4 videos, and it's all right there. And it's like boom, boom, boom. And then they, we'll give them like 20 of those, and they're like, oh, I like that Justin. And mostly it's the videos that hit home for them. Because like everybody looks the same on LinkedIn, everybody looks the same on the resume, and it's the video. So like that's a good point that you bring up, is like being able to make a video and just send it to somebody is probably the best way to like
stand out
strings. Yeah, I think it pulls up, because like you can get on there and say, hey, I did 20, like in Tom's case, I did 23 years. I was a field grade officer. I was responsible for all this. This is why I think I'd be a good salesperson. These are the soft skills I bring. And they're going to be like, they're not going to be able to read that on a piece of paper and truly articulate it. So video is pretty strong.
What I did when I spoke to the VP of Revenue, I sent her a video. I created a deck, a slide of basically what I've achieved, who I am, and, both professionally and personally. It was very short. I think it was like a minute and a half, but it was very direct. And I created it because I wanted her to want to know, who's this Justin, and wanting to learn more. And that's what you want with your prospects. You want to generate interest. And that's what I did with her. And then what I also did is I went on to LinkedIn, and while I was walking my dog, I shoot her a quick 20-second video saying, hey, Michelle, Justin here. I just sent you an email giving you a little background of who I am. I'm really excited to chat with you tomorrow. Right.
Yeah.
So two touches. Right. So those are the sorts of things, like, you have to stand out during the recruitment process. I wouldn't even start sending a CV before I reached out to people and spoke to them. If CV, nobody even cares about your CV after you've spoken to them. People will skim through that. So you have to generate the interest that way. That's
like Art said, ours isn't. Our CVs aren't. They look weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Hey, so one thing I did want to talk about is, like, how long were you SDR at Dooley? Under a year, right?
Yeah, under a year. Yeah.
So how'd you get promoted so fast?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? I wish I could tell. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to say, oh, it's because I did better, or I'm better than everybody else. Honestly, Sean, I'm lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
See, you're going to be modest, but I think deep down, so this is the thing about these sales organizations. They don't like letting people skip the line, right? So you have to come in software. And these other sales organizations will let you come in and be like a full sales cycle rep, manufacturing, med. You can just go straight into closing, right? But in software, they want to make you pay the dues, right? So they hired you knowing that you're probably a high-level performer from your background, and they just made you put in a certain amount of time, and you didn't stumble. You actually crushed it. And, right when they had a position open, they're probably like, this is a no-brainer. Why would we hire outside the organization when we got Justin here, who probably should have been an AE in the first place, right? That's how that's my mindset is, you see these people out there talking about, like, don't go into sales orgs and say, when am I going to make AE? You should, SDRs, why when they say they're equal things, but the pay gap is so big, man. So like it's a no-brainer to go in there and try to make AE as quick as possible, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you have the skills to do it, then you should definitely try and get account executive as quickly as you can, especially if you're a veteran with lots of experience. Absolutely.
Or a SDR leadership role, which they pay pretty well too. But
SDR, you want to leadership.
I'm like, how are you?
31, just last
Yeah,
month.
like I was like 40 when I started. Like I don't have time to sit there for 3 years and just be at the bottom of the pay chart either to you. So like
Dude,
that's kind of my mindset.
I'll tell you what, man. When I left the Army, I had a chip on my shoulder. You know, I thought 7 years in the British Army, corporal. I was about to promote to sergeant. I thought I was the shit. And then I
Yeah,
started as an SDR and, you know, working under people, you know, leadership that, you know, I thought, gosh, if I was in that position, I'd do a lot better based on my experience and how I've seen leadership run in the British Army. So you have to be prepared for that. If you're going to leave the armed forces and join the sales role, it's going to be really frustrating sometimes, but you have to, but that's the thing, right? With soldiers, right? We push through it. We
yeah.
push through it and we do what we have to do. So, you know,
What's
working
your
hard.
average close rate? I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but what like generally across your AEs, like what percentage are you closing of the ops that you're getting from your SDRs? Do you
Well,
even know?
right now I've only just promoted, so my pipeline, I'm still working on it.
Yeah,
So I couldn't give you a close rate because I don't have enough data for it. But I closed my first
do they have like an average across the organization? The reason why I'm asking because I'm trying to
yeah,
highlight how little you win in sales.
yeah, it's typically between like 20-30%, somewhere
Yeah,
like that.
so it's
Yeah.
like baseball, right? Like if you bat 30 or 300, you're an all star.
Yeah.
Um, in sales, if you bat 300, you're an all star. So like if you get 10 ops, you close three, you fail on seven. That's you don't fail that much in the military because
No.
you fail during training. But I'm saying when you actually execute the test or the final thing, you're
No,
not losing
exactly.
like 7 out of your 10 guys on the battlefield, right?
Dude,
It's not happening.
you touched on a really good point because especially if you're a BDR where you're sending emails and cold calling, like I remember last year, I was making, I think it was $600 a week with a power dialer,
Yeah,
30 connects, right? And then I was booking maybe 2 to 3 meetings from those 30 connects. So that's a 10% connect to meeting book ratio. And I thought, I am the worst BDR ever. And I started beating myself for it because I'm like, well, why can't I, why am I not doing better? Um, there was a few things that I could have done, but that's good. Like if you're connecting with 30 people on the phone and you're talking to different types of personas and you're doing bottom up approach, because I was talking to all sorts of people. So sometimes they weren't like the decision makers or couldn't take the meeting, but I was calling them anyways because I was trying to create groundswell in the
yeah,
account to
yeah,
book the meeting. But 3 meetings a week is good for a lot of the SDRs I speak with, and you have to
yeah,
be happy with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 out of like 600 calls.
3 meetings after 600 calls, which is
Yeah.
like, I can't tell you how many hours that is of just like being, yeah.
And then the reason I
Hard
want to
work.
bring this up is because like people talk about grit, like that self development job is it's just a constant no.
Yeah.
When you want to hire people that are going to be able to like go through the emotional ups and downs, and we've done it. We've done
Oh,
it. And
yeah.
let's see what Phil has to say real quick.
Yeah.
All right, you want to read that for me?
When applying for a sales roles, you're pitching yourself as the product and you need to solve their problems while also explaining why you're better than hundreds of other options out there. Follow up. The place most salespeople fail, almost all applicants fail. That's where you can make a huge difference. I can't agree more. I think following up, I mean, money's in the follow up. That's what they say, right? And I truly
Yeah.
believe that.
Oh,
From yeah,
I have a cold calling buddy, Kevin Hop.
yeah, he's great.
He
Just did a
says,
course with him, by the way.
what's
Yeah,
he say? Fat stacks in the circle backs. So like if he tells somebody he's going to call him back in like 2 weeks, he puts it in his CRM and he calls him back in 2 weeks, which
yeah,
is like, and that's another thing that I think vets bring to the table is that discipline of the process. Like the Army's
Mm,
a lot of the military's a lot of processes,
yeah.
and we've already proved that we're able to go into the process, and
Hmm.
we get to think outside the box and stuff. But like at the end of the day, like um, the Army knows what works well because they've done it thousands of times, and your sales leaders know what works well because they've done it thousands of times. So you need to like just fall within that system and framework, and you put your own spin on it, and then show some discipline. Because I think like a lot of the SDRs I see that don't do good are always like on LinkedIn looking at new tactics, and are constantly like changing all the
Yeah.
stuff they're doing because they're trying to listen to the influencers on what's
Oh,
hot right now, and they're showing
yeah.
no discipline in the process, right? And so like following up is like an old school sales
Yeah.
foundation that
Absolutely.
a lot of people like don't do. So that's a good point.
Stick to the basics. Stick to the basics first. Master the basics, and then try some stuff there. And careful who you listen to on LinkedIn, right? Because not everything is as it seems. So don't
Yeah,
compare yourself to others. Yeah.
yeah, and then like I say this stuff all the time is like it's the same like the in special operations like the SEALs clear rooms different
Differently. Yeah.
than we do.
Yeah.
And then I've integrated them with them before, and it's weird. It's like they're doing some weird stuff that I don't understand, and we're doing weird stuff they don't understand. But at the end of the day, when they do it by themselves, they do well, and we do
Hmm.
well. And there's different ways, but they're in a different. They're doing ships, and we're doing like
Yeah.
mud hut or whatever. So like, just because it's working for you over there doesn't mean it's going to work for me over here, right? Does that
That's
make
that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing, right? Like when we're in the armed forces, we have everybody knows what they need to do and where. And it's all choreographed and there's a lot of moving parts, isn't there? And even in my role, like, everything was planned out to the T. Like, so if anything happened, my team knew exactly what they needed to do because we've rehearsed it, we've talked about it, we've done everything. Whereas in the civilian world, it's not the same, right? It's not the same. Processes are not thought out. So you have to be happy working in ambiguity, right? But then on the flip side of that, you're probably going to be the person who goes and instills a new process that works. Because you're probably going to go in there and be like, what the hell are we doing here? There's no process. What are we doing? And then you're going to go and create one.
Yeah.
And that's where you stand out, right? The
Yep.
same way you would if you were in the armed forces, you'd create a process, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we got to wrap it up. We're hitting our 45. But my
No
last
worries.
question is, so the economy's bad right now. Every time
Yeah.
a role pops up on the on LinkedIn or wherever, like 300 people apply for it within
Mm.
2 minutes. Like minus the LinkedIn prospecting that you talked about, what else
Mhm.
can these like vets do to like get themselves minus come to shift group, which is like that just makes
Yeah.
it easy for you. But other than that, what else can they do to like get themselves ahead and get them a job out there in the software world? Do
Yeah.
you know?
I would say just one that comes to mind is get recommendations. Um, if you go on my LinkedIn profile and you scroll down, you'll see tons of recommendations. I ask people for recommendations, and people are happy to give me because they know I'm a hard worker. So when I left the armed forces, I got Ryan Portman was one of my sergeants. I admired that guy so much. Um, Ben, Callum, Ian Fox, like all these people know me when I was in the army, and they know what kind of person I am.
Yeah,
So get those recommendations. Don't be scared to ask for it. The problem with veterans is that we don't like to stand out. We like to be the gray man, but when you're applying for a job, you need to stand out. And then once you go in, like you can even see I got recommendations from teachers that at university that knew me. So that's one thing you can do, and that ask for the recommendation, give a recommendation before people even ask for it. So one of the things I did when I applied to Dooley is my previous company, the people I worked for, they said, hey, could you recommend me to this person? So they sent them a LinkedIn message saying, hey, Justin's applying for this role. You know, you'd be lucky to have him. I would hire him. Right.
Wow.
So those are
That's
one
powerful.
of the things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
don't
the
let it
last
come from
thing,
you. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Don't let it come from you.
Yeah.
Let it come from somebody else. Let somebody else tell you why you're a good hire.
And this is the no-brainer, but there's not a lot of us, but there's a nice little veteran community in the software sales world. Reach out to those people. Like,
absolutely.
They're not everybody's going to help, but there's so few veterans in the software world. If you reach out to one that's like doing really well, they're going to help you. Like nine out of 10 are going to help. They're going to be like, hell yeah, man, let's get you set up. You know, I've never asked a veteran in the sales space for a favor and them telling me no.
Yeah, exactly. Reach out to me. You know, my doors are open.
Yeah.
Sean, your doors are wide open. I know that you do a lot of things for a lot of people that people don't see. You know?
Yeah. I piss off a lot of people too.
It's great. Love it.
All right. Well, hey, I don't know who's in here, but thanks for showing up today, Justin. Thanks for showing up today. I'll post this so people can watch it if they weren't able to show up. And hey, man, good luck in this tough environment. I know it's tough selling out there right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback. Sorry. Yeah. It was great chatting, Sean. Thanks for having me on, man. And let's hopefully this has helped somebody.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Have a good night. Mark said thanks. Yeah. All right. Later.
Bye. Peace.